swept. At the same time, we know that there are some things happening underneath the surface here. When it comes to the key Democratic constituencies, Black voters, Latino voters, younger voters, now potentially Arab and Muslim voters, there's a problem. And does the Biden campaign, do you get the sense that they acknowledge, they're aware of the scope of that problem?
I do think that they sense the enormity of the situation that they're dealing with the many groups inside of his coalition. But, I think that you can't look at any of these groups as monoliths, right? Like Black voters, I think there's a lot of persuasion that's going to have to be done in the Black community this time around before you get to get out the vote effort in that community. And with the Muslim voters, one thing to consider is that even though people are angry now or having strong emotions now, like this race is a choice between two people. And at the end of the day, Joe Biden is going to be so much better for our relationships in the world and how we're dealing with Israel than President Trump would be. And finally, Israel may not be the issue that it is in the fall that it is right now, right? We're closer and closer to a ceasefire. It may not be in the headlines at all. Earlier, just as we were coming on, Bakari was talking about the third party component of this, the RFKs, the Jill Steins, the all the others, Dean Phillips, whoever. That's a real factor, it seems. How worried are you? Very. I'm very worried. Cornel West as well. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost in large part because 8% of voters chose third-party candidates in that race. And Joe Biden won in 2020 when less than 2% of voters chose third-party candidates. And so that margin, that 6-point difference, could be very consequential for Joe Biden. So I think that they need to take the threat seriously. They need to neutralize some of these campaigns, and they need to get out in front of making sure that they have, their positive vision for America on their front foot. Bakari, who are you?
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Straight Out of Politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. Let me know the sound is good. I always have a little bit of anxiety about that. I think I checked my sound, but just make sure if there's any issues, let me know in the chat. What's up, everybody? Thank you. We're starting strong. Starting out with about 425 people. Make sure you hit that like button. Get us to 800 is always the target when we're live. But today's episode, I think, has a lot of interest. We have a lot to cover. I'll just go down the list and read some of the topics we have. So we have uncommitted results from Super Tuesday. We're going to talk about that. And part of that same topic, I want to talk about how voting uncommitted is meaningless if you vote for Joe Biden in November. So we'll talk about that. Also, Nick covered the AOC temper tantrum. That's really what it was. And today I'm more covering the fallout, like the day after, the articles that have been written. So we'll cover the fallout of AOC's latest temper tantrum. Also, Jamaal Bowman puts out a video. He's definitely afraid of losing because AIPAC is going to go at his throat. So he's been leaning hard as if he doesn't have the history of being pro-Israel. He's been leaning hard into the pro-Palestinian side. So we'll examine Jamaal Bowman pretending he wasn't just a staunch State of Israel supporter, just like last week. Also, Stephen A. Smith calls out Joe Biden. And the reason this is significant is because when you're talking about an establishment person, somebody who has listeners in the millions, that means there's people willing to pay him for a certain point of view. So he comes out with this point of view talking about Biden, but I'm just wondering, being on the Sean Hannity show lately, talking about certain things, he seems like he's leaning Republican, and maybe that's the slant, but that doesn't mean that the critique of Joe Biden is inaccurate. So we'll talk about that. Then, if you hadn't heard, Fred Flintstone is running in the Democratic primary, and Fred Flintstone posted a picture of himself saying, Fred Flintstone voted for Fred Flintstone, so we'll check that out. You may know Fred Flintstone as Cenk Uygur. We also talk about all the protests, along with AOC, sort of falling into the area of protest. But then we have two Palestinian protests, and it seems like it's a new sort of direct action interruption of some event, multiple every day. And this one is Adam Schiff and Kirsten, I think Kirsten Gillibrand. I know her name is Gillibrand. I don't know if her first name is Kirsten, or Kirsten. So we'll talk about that. And then if you hadn't seen, it's a very short video. We'll also throw in the UAW president being called upon by Joe Biden to say, hey, I'm losing Michigan, brother. I need you to bring out the workers. So he comes out and says something with Joe Biden sitting right there. But the point being is two things. One, the UAW rank and file are largely, or the majority of them are Trump supporters. So the UAW leadership coming out saying any of these things is just what's the value in that? But anyway, all of those topics is displayed in this graphic. That's why you see the people in the graphic that you see. Now, let's get back to this. Actually, make sure I don't have any super chats here. Yeah, no super chats. I love that Rumble comments are now here. So thankfully, Rumble is here. It's a Rumble comment. It's another Rumble comment. And this is always when I say Cenk Uygur, this always come up. Cenk Uygur, this chunk Uygur, that somebody always at some point says that, and just find it funny. Anyway, that's my phone going off. Let me move that. But anyway, let's get back to the topic you see, or that was on display on the screen, and that is Super Tuesday was yesterday, and of course there was Uncommitted was on the ballot. In a lot of these Super Tuesday states like Minnesota, where else did I see? I saw Alabama. I'm missing a bunch. Just blanking up. Was it Arizona? Somewhere. Anyway, a bunch of no preference. That's the same thing as Uncommitted. We'll be diving into that and getting back to this video because it's very they're admitting. I think the Biden campaign, the establishment is at a point where they've seen enough polls to where there has to be a little bit of admitting on screen that that this is not going quite as well as they want, and they have to put in a little work. But I thought this guy in the beginning said a lot of important things that was slightly surprising to hear on these. But you do see the most honest critique on these live event shows when they have these live event shows like a debate or like a primary. That's when you do see the most honest critique, because they haven't gone back and talked to somebody and said, okay, how do I craft my establishment talking point around this? They're trying to do it on the fly, so a lot of more honest critique usually comes out. Maybe that's the case here, maybe not, but let's listen.
Swept. At the same time, we know that there are some things happening underneath the surface here. When it comes to the key Democratic constituencies, Black voters, Latino voters, younger voters, now potentially Arab and Muslim voters, there's a problem. And does the Biden campaign, do you get the sense that they acknowledge, they're aware of the scope of that problem?
I do think that they sense the enormity of the situation that they're dealing with the many groups inside of his coalition. But, I think that you can't look at any of these groups as monoliths, right? Like Black voters, I think there's a lot of persuasion that's going to have to be done in the Black community this time around before you get out the vote effort in that community. And with Muslim voters,
Now, this point he makes about Black voter, that is a point that has yet to be mentioned until now in public discourse in this sort of very clear and concise way. That it's typically get out the vote. Vote or die. They had Puff Daddy. Remember they hired Puff Daddy to do that? Vote or die. One year they had Jay-Z and Beyonce. But for what I was going to say. With this honesty about this no longer being a turnout election, at least for the Black community, this is now a convince then turnout election, which is very It's not a comfortable place for the Democratic establishment to be in. They're usually in the motivation, and then they start talking about Rosa Parks on the bus and stuff like that, and lull these black supporters to sleep with their rhetoric. But let's continue. Bacardi Sellers also chimes in with an important point.
One thing to consider is that even though people are angry now or having strong emotions now, like this race is a choice between two people. And at the end of the day, Joe Biden is going to be so much better for our relationships in the world and how we're dealing with Israel than President Trump would be.
And finally,
Israel may not be the issue that it is in the fall that it is right now, right? We're closer and closer to a ceasefire. It may not be in the headlines at all.
Earlier, just as we were coming on, Bakari was talking about the third party component of this, the RFKs, the Jill Steins, all the others, Dean Phillips, whoever.
So isn't that democracy? When your candidate can't win, you say, can we get some of these other candidates out of the race? So here's the pivot to the third party movement. And here is where people like Cornel West does not want to be in the crosshairs of this moment. Could you imagine Cornel West being the candidate for the Green Party and not have gone through all these, iterations and all these problems? He was just a candidate. Imagine him doing the interviews with us and everything is just going along. He's continuing to do our interviews. He's staying with the Green Party. They don't hire Peter Dow as a campaign manager. They get somebody else. Jill Stein stays on. Obviously, Jill Stein could stay on as the campaign manager if she's able to run as the candidate now. So let's say all of that fell into place. This moment is the moment that Cornel West was running from. This moment is the reason why he made all of those seemingly those I scratch my head decisions. Those I scratch my, we're like, why is he? This doesn't make any sense. This is deliberate. This guy has a degree. A smart person knows how to make bad decisions so to get a bad outcome. So that's all Cornel West did, is make a series of bad decisions because he kept getting the heat. But imagine if he was this person here. The reason it is so much value, one, I think that he would get more people than Jill Stein. He has a larger footprint, larger base in the black community that he could get. You know what would be the other thing? He would be on more ballots. So when they talk in these discussions about third parties, they're talking based off of polling. The person's not on the ballot. RFK is, though, and I think they talk about it in this clip or another one I have, but RFK is getting signatures. He's notching signatures in this clip, but let's listen.
It's a real factor, it seems. How worried are you?
Very. I'm very worried. Cornel West as well. In 2016, Hillary Clinton lost in large part because 8% of voters chose third-party candidates in that race. And Joe Biden won in 2020 when less than 2% of voters chose third-party candidates. And so that margin, that 6-point difference, could be very consequential for Joe Biden. So I think that they need to take the threat seriously. They need to neutralize some of these campaigns, and they need to get out in front of making sure that they have
what does that mean?
Their
neutralize some of those campaigns. Let me
on their front foot.
Bakari, who are you most worried about?
Neutralize some of those campaigns. He's referring to the third-party campaigns. Now, when in military terms, when the U.S. empire says neutralize, they typically means taken out, kill, destroy, unalive. So when you say neutralize some of those candidates, is that what you mean? Do you mean pay them off to get out of the race? Do you mean scare them to get out of the race? Do you mean take them to court to get out of the race? Is that what democracy is? Joe Biden is in an unwinnable position. It doesn't matter. You could take all the third-party people off of the ballot. Joe Biden would still lose, and it shows that in the polls. They have polling with third-party candidates and without. In the battlegrounds, he's winning even without the third-party candidates added. Donald Trump, that is. He's in an unwinnable position because there's a lot of him having to move right in order to pitch to those suburban white people who are like Nikki Haley supporters, because they know their policy position will never satisfy the left. So they can hear the left and they can easily pivot to them, easily have those people. But their policy position as an empire can't allow them to do that. So they go, what's the next big thing? We have to go after some middle ground people. That means we have to move right. So what does that mean? Immigration. Let's kill asylum. What is that going to do to another constituency? So he's in an unwinnable position trying to get the middle, because those decisions to get the middle is turning off more of his base. Joe Biden is going to lose if Joe Biden is the candidate. Joe Biden will lose, in my opinion. Anyway, let's finish out. Let's listen to Bacardi Sellers. I think that's how you said that.
So I slightly disagree with my friend to my right, because I don't think that it's a two-person race. I've always said this. I think that it's a race between Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and the couch. And so my biggest fear is the couch.
Sure.
And I think that there are a lot of voters. I mean, I don't anticipate there are going to be many Arab or Muslim voters that jump over Joe Biden to vote for Donald Trump. But there may be a large amount to stay home. There aren't a lot of black voters there is no planet on which Donald Trump is going to get 20+% of black voters. I don't care who at the New York Times. I don't know.
Okay, we'll come back to this.
I don't know what they smoking. I don't know.
So Bacardi Sellers is saying, I don't care what that poll says, Donald Trump is not getting, what do you say, 25% of the black vote. Maybe he doesn't understand we are smack dab in the middle of a realignment here. You have,
I don't know when they smoking it. I don't know what poll
you
they
have
think.
the Democratic Party that's shunning the working class, and you have the Democratic Party that's taking suburbanites, that's taking the college graduates, that's taking the high earners. There's a realignment that's happening here. And when we're talking about 25% of the black vote going to Donald Trump, that could be just black males, because black males are leaving the Democratic Party in Grove. Look at just RBN as an example, as a case study. You got 5 black people, 4 males leaving the Democratic Party, and 1 female. So for 1 black female, there's 4 black males leaving and refusing to vote for the Democratic Party. So Bacardi Sellers may be in shocked, but the realignment is happening. But it's up to RBN to grab those black people that's moving to Donald Trump and the Republicans, because that's not the way to go. You're making a linear move like this.
They think they're doing, or whomever's doing it. There is no planet that Donald Trump is going to get 20+% of black voters. It's just not going to happen. But some of those black voters may stay home. And that's going to matter in places like Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Clark County. So I'm more worried about the couch than I am.
Okay, so RFK Jr., just today, he got enough signatures to get on the Nevada ballot.
Listen to this.
They're key battleground
definitely
state.
Afraid.
There's a real question about who he hurts. Who does he hurt? Is it Biden? Is it Trump?
He will take from both sides. I had the opportunity to interview him for an article, and I went to a opening of one of his campaign in New Jersey, and the crowd was mixed. There were some that were Biden supporters. I spoke with many who were Republicans who said they're going to cross over and vote for him because of the way he was about COVID and about vaccines and many of the issues he stands for. He's going to pull some Republicans and some Democrats. And so I think he is someone to watch. His campaign has slowly been working on the very difficult part of ballot access. It's not so much about
you mean running an actual campaign, unlike the Cornel West campaign. You mean RFK Jr. This is what I said. The independent candidacy of Cornel West and the independent candidacy of RFK are not built the same. Not at all. You have one who is just who's literally doing a make you feel good tour. That's all Cornel West is doing. He want to do a bunch of digital sort of campaign stops. He want to, do some interviews. That didn't work out. That was his first strategy. Let me just go independent media, do some interviews. Black Power Media and RBN was like, okay, making you accountable, but you're doing bullshit. We gonna freaking criticize you. He didn't like that. Point being, RFK Jr. is getting on ballots, is getting on swing state ballots like this one. I think this one they're announcing is either Wisconsin. He announced Georgia. He announced Arizona. He announced North Carolina. Like, when is Cornel West going to make these announcements of getting on battleground straight states? But let's listen to what they say about RFK here.
He's going to pull some Republicans and some Democrats. And so I think he is someone to watch. His campaign has slowly been working on the very difficult part of ballot access. It's not so much about who can do great in the polls right now, but who can get on the ballots. And they've been slowly doing so. I think Bakari is onto something with regard to the couch vote, because what we saw in our early CNN exit polls tonight in Virginia and North Carolina, of Republican primary voters, 30% to 40% say they're not MAGA people. They're not.
Yeah, this is where she pivots to, I know where my paycheck comes from, and let's get off this topic. That's literally what happens right here. We don't need to continue with that. But let's get to this headline here. Oh, that's why I usually have this in this ear. Like, why is this? My ears are different sizes. So this one is for this ear. I'm like, why does this keep falling out? But anyway, let's look at this headline here. It says uncommitted voters in Minnesota win 11 delegates on Super Tuesday. That's huge. 11 delegates. So you're talking about on the convention floor in Chicago, you're talking about chaos. You're talking about people who are delegates who can sit in the convention, who can yell shit. Like ceasefire now. Can you imagine what that convention? Maybe I'll raise some money and come out there for a weekend to cover it with Kit Harlan's Media, who lives in Chicago. So really, maybe I'll do that, because this shit is about to be on and popping at this convention with this going on, which is why I think they're trying to press this ceasefire, so because they wanted to kind of bleed or overlap the convention, so that none of the shenanigans happen. But I'll read a little bit, and then I'll read all, because I'm going to read a lot of this article. It breaks down a lot of numbers here. But along the right side, I'll read this little snippet that I did clip out. 7 of the 15 states that had Democratic primaries on Super Tuesday offered an uncommitted option. So that just gives you a little detail. So a little bit less than half of the states that was voting yesterday had an uncommitted option. I saw one called no preference too, but that's what they're including in. And then let's continue on. Minnesota saw the greatest percentage of uncommitted votes on Super Tuesday at 18.9%. Meanwhile, North Carolina saw the greatest number, the sheer number of uncommitted votes at 88,000 plus. So let me bring this down, and I'll go to the actual headline here. This is crazy. This article has a lot of detail. There is another Newsweek that gives a state-by-state breakdown of the detail, but this one might suffice. If it doesn't, I'll bring up the Newsweek one too. Let me go up to the top. So this is a local Fox News in Minnesota with the headline, and now I'll read some of it. Maybe I need to blow this up. Like, still need to get some glasses. So let me blow this up and read a little bit. Thousands of voters in Minnesota voted uncommitted in the Democratic presidential primary. As a result, 11 of Minnesota's delegates will be pledged uncommitted at the 2024 Democratic National Convention in August. President Joe Biden won 70.7% of the vote on Tuesday in Minnesota, winning 64 of the 75 delegates that were at stake in the Democratic primary. Uncommitted won 11 delegates after securing 18.9% of the vote. And we broke that down. That 18.9% of the vote translates into 45,910. These are good chunks of people, large enough at least to say you would lose the state. As close as some of these states will be, Minnesota may not be as close, but like North Carolina, or maybe I'm saying it vice versa. Maybe it's vice versa. But when you're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 votes in North Carolina, 88,000 votes, the margins of victories between these two candidates, sometimes it's less than that. Continuing with the article, let me make sure it looks good here. To continue with the article, voters in Minnesota on Tuesday cast an uncommitted vote to signal Biden of their dissatisfaction, mostly in part over his support of Israel and how America has responded to the Israel-Hamas war. Minnesota has significant populations of Muslims, including in its Somali American community. The uncommitted vote movement started largely in Minnesota, which is home to the largest concentrations of Muslim and Arabic speakers in the United States. In the state primaries last week, more than 100,000 people voted uncommitted, which was about 13% of the Democratic vote. Now, let's scroll down to this part here, because it's going to break down into some numbers here. Super Tuesday uncommitted votes. 7 of the 15 states that had Democratic primaries on Super Tuesday offered an uncommitted option. And then I read that part already, so I'll just go down to this graphic. So this graphic breaks down by state. Here are the 7 states, and then it shows the uncommitted total thus far. Now, of course, I think they're even still reporting on it, like meaning some of the states still doesn't have a total 100% reporting. That usually 99 reporting stays for a long time because they're kind of double checking before they put that 100% marker on there. But let's read just some of the total, not percentages, the raw numbers. Alabama topped 11,213 at the time of this article was written. Colorado, 43,439. Iowa had a caucus, so this is slightly different, 480. Massachusetts was another big one that has some large numbers, 55,858. Minnesota, again, 45,942. North Carolina, 88,021. And then Tennessee, 10,450. These are significant raw numbers that if you're part of the Biden administration, you got to be looking at this like, wow, what did we win that state by last time? What did we win by? All right, so here goes some of the breakdown of the delegates. Breakdown of Minnesota's Democratic delegates, district level, and it just gives you the total. I don't need to read all of this because it's just specific to Minnesota. But that is the breakdown of, or the latest numbers, I should say, of the tallies. Now, I might, because I usually towards the end of the stream, I'll go through my feed to see anything breaking, and I'll probably get an update for that number towards the end of the stream. So stay tuned for that. But let's go back to Twitter and then kind of go through the presentation here. We covered that. Now let's go back down, and I'm going to kind of go in an order. So some of this is not the latest stuff, but just to show the progression of kind of went down. And looking at the numbers, I'll go here because I retweeted here. Actually, let's go here. Looking at the numbers that we read. Oops. Let's look at this tweet. This tweet was 15 hours ago. So it looks like that article was written closely because it says North Carolina here, 85,000 at this time. And then in an article, it said 88,000. I think the Massachusetts was at 55,000. On here, it says 35,000. So you see the reporting. And we'll get to this as the next part. We're going to bleed into this next part of what I want to talk about this. And that's my tweet here. And I say all of these uncommitted votes will be erased if you vote for Genocide Joe in November. What is the use? And I guess I can pause here and answer a couple of things I wrote down here. What does it accomplish to vote uncommitted in the primary, then vote for Joe Biden in November? If you are if you're dissatisfied because what you're seeing on the TV, what you're seeing on your phone, what you're seeing happening, the massacre that's happening in Palestine, if he doesn't if he doesn't call for a permanent ceasefire, not this temporary thing, if he doesn't call for a permanent ceasefire, the thing that got you to vote uncommitted in the primary hasn't been fixed. So why would you then, in November, the thing that hasn't been fixed, vote affirmative for that guy? That just logically doesn't make sense. So again, the question is, what does that accomplish? The next thing is, are you an actual ally to Palestinians if you vote for Biden in November? Because this could be just a trying to clear your conscience thing. Oh, I'm a Palestinian ally. I voted uncommitted. Yes, I'm voting for Biden because of Trump in November, but I voted uncommitted. That means I'm an ally. Are you? Are you an ally? If that's what you're doing, I would say no. And I would say, I would go out on a limb and say the Palestinian Community Network, who we've had on this network many times, I would say they would probably answer that question, hell fucking no. Because they corrected Nick on him calling Israel an apartheid state. They was like, before this genocide was going on one of our summits, the Palestinian Community Network corrected Nick and said, no, they're a genocidal state. So Nick was switched and start calling them genocidal state long before October 7th. So back to, we covered the article. So I'm going to skip these articles that I had saved because we covered an article. I found a better article, a more newer article. So, but there, as you can see, I guess I can read some of the headlines. As you can see, a lot has been written about this. Here's this one. This one is from Rolling Stone, and it says, Super Tuesday highlights Biden's Gaza problem. That's from the Rolling Stone. This one from Common Dream, and it says Minnesota Dems aim to repeat uncommitted campaign success on Super Tuesday. I think that was right before Super Tuesday. Here's another one. Where's this one from? This one is from HuffPost. We haven't seen the last of the uncommitted voters. That's from the HuffPost. This one from In These Times. The uncommitted campaign plans to send Biden a message this Super Tuesday. So, and then there was another one from CBS News. But again, we don't need to go over that again. This is just showing in a graphic terms the numbers that we went over in the states, in graphic terms, what they look like as far as vote share. You can see. Okay. This is from the Financial Times that put this out. This tweet from Nina Turner. Actually, I shouldn't have did that. I could just do it from here. Let me go back. Here's a tweet from Nina Turner. Let's read what she read. I was following some of the uncommitted by following some of what she was tweeting here. This is one of the tweets I saved. Excuse me. Nina says, No preference has over 80,000 votes in the Democratic primary. North Carolina was decided by roughly 74,000 votes. So Nina Turner, that thing I was asking for, how much did he win by last time, to kind of compare it against these uncommitted votes? And Nina Turner right here has that answer. No preference has 80,000 votes in the Democratic primary. North Carolina was decided by roughly 74,000 votes. Funding a genocide is not popular, and continuing to do so will hand Trump the election. So these numbers aren't insignificant, even though on mainstream media now, the day after, they're trying to play it down like this wasn't a big deal. And it was trending. Uncommitted, of course, was trending on Twitter last night. That was from the DSA. DSA had put that out. I may read this in comparison, the abandoned Biden movement. But recognizing the revolutionary potential of the abandoned Biden, listen to Michigan initiatives. So if I have time, I'm gonna get to that. Here's another headline. 1 in 5 vote uncommitted against Biden in the Minnesota Democratic primary. 2024 alarm bell for Joe faces as he faces Joe. It should say Biden. That's a misprint. That's a typo. Bells for Joe Biden as he faces another embarrassment with thousands voting in protest over his handling of Gaza. I'll read just a little bit of what I took. Did I take anything out of this? Oh, yeah, I did. Very small, but oh, wow. Actually, not very small. So let's put that back up and let's bring it on the side here. The biggest margins came through in Minnesota, where nearly 20% of the Democratic voters in the state voted uncommitted. The threshold for delegates in the primary is 15%. So if the totals hold, uncommitted could actually win a delegate to send to the national convention in Chicago. I'll scroll down here. Tonight's numbers show that President Biden cannot earn back our votes with just rhetoric. The vote uncommitted in Minnesota spokesperson said in a statement, quote, over 35 Minnesotans, I think that's like Minnesotans, made it clear that Democrats want Joe Biden to change his policies, stop sending weapons to Israel, and use all possible leverage to end Israel's war in Gaza. The Minnesota campaign only spent $20,000 over 1 week to urge Democrats to register their protests in primary. Only $20,000 over 1 week. The uncommitted campaign gained momentum after Democratic primary voters in Michigan rallied to send a message to the administration. More than 100,000 voters in the state chose uncommitted rather than President Biden. I'll scroll down even more. Tonight's numbers showed that President Biden can't earn. Did it pop back up? Oh, this doubles 2 times. This is the part. The uncommitted campaign. Wait. Oh, you know what? It repeats. My bad. So that's a typo. But anyway, that is the headline. Let's go to the next item I have here. I think I may have one more before I go to the next related topic here. Nope. That is the last item. So let's go to my notes here. 1 second here. I want to continue, and because what I'm talking about is, or what I have been talking about, is how Joe Biden will lose the 2024 election. That is really what the uncommitted campaign is about. And of course, the uncommitted campaign in the already positioned abandoned Biden campaign. Now, the abandoned Biden campaign say, fuck the primaries. We're talking about November as the target, and they're targeting 50 states. So we're really talking about how Joe Biden will lose the 2024 election. That is if he remains the candidate, because some people don't believe he's going to remain the candidate. So let's talk about another way about how Joe Biden, another illustration of how Joe Biden is going to lose in 2024. Thank you, Steph, for the video or for the tweet where I got this video. So let's pivot to labor. Let's pivot to organized labor, unions. And let's talk about the sellout union leadership known as the UAW, Shawn Fain. He uses a lot of radical rhetoric, largely because he was when he was running for union president, the guy he was running against, and it went to a runoff. It got very close. That guy was a communist. He was using a lot of rhetoric. We need to do this. We need to do that. So it kind of pulled Shawn in that direction. And he just ran with it. And he continues to use this rhetoric, but it's not backed up by actual action. Now, Joe Biden just showed up in his cognitive decline state known as dementia, in my opinion, and just stood there, said no specifics about what he was in solidarity with workers with, but he just stood there and said, I'm in solidarity with you getting a good contract. Well, a good contract by whose definition is always the question. But based on that, the UAW leadership has crowned Joe Biden the labor president of the century, even though Joe Biden broke a strike. It's a very short video. The Biden administration reached out to UAW leadership and said, hey, we have a problem in Michigan because of our stance and our policy, the empire stance on Palestine. So we need you to activate the workers in Michigan so we can supplement who we're losing on Palestine and gain them back in workers. The problem with that strategy is the rank and file of the UAW largely supports Donald Trump. But let's listen to this sellout leader known as Shawn Fain.
The beauty of this election, both of these candidates, the top two candidates, have been in this position.
Yes.
And the body of work speaks for itself. You look at Donald Trump, every time he's had the opportunity, he blamed the American worker. And you look at President Biden, every time he's had the opportunity, he bet on the American worker. He stood with the American worker.
God,
That's our fight going forward. And we're going to do everything in our power to get this man reelected.
Absolutely.
So I let it play all the way. Now let's go back and pick apart.
The beauty of this election, both of these candidates, the top two candidates, have been in this position.
Yes.
And the body of work speaks for itself. You look at
the body of work speaks for itself. Now, I'm not here to advocate for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is scum. So, but what I'm here to say is Joe Biden is not at all the description that Shawn Fain is making. The body of work. What do you mean? What body of work? You mean the body of work where he broke a strike? Is that the body of work you're talking about? So, and I wasn't planning this, but let's bring up the body of work Shawn Fain is referring to. Let's bring up just the headline here. So, Shawn Fain says the body of work speaks for itself. Here's the body of work. What Biden and Congress moved to ban railroad strike reveals. Shawn Fain said the body of work speak for itself. This is the body of work. Shawn Fain, we have the smoking gun. This breaking of the railroad strike is the smoking gun. Sean Fain is Joe Biden's defense attorney, and he wants to say, "Oh, yeah, that's the smoking gun." But Joe Biden said some kind words about workers over there. Did you see that? Something completely insignificant, or at least something in comparison to breaking the strike, is minuscule. Whatever Joe Biden is doing, his decent appointments to the NLRB board, to NLRB. Sorry, breaking the strike trumps that. Pardon the pun. Let me see if I read a little bit of this. Yeah, I'll read a little bit. The move by Washington to override a clear vote by railroad workers to reject a White House brokered contract and impose it unilaterally is a major assault on the basic democratic rights of the working class. Sean Fain of the UAW. It is also a strategic experience, the lessons of which workers must learn, but Sean Fain is trying to keep the workers confused about who's on their side. And what did Nick say at the beginning of this year? We have to be crystal clear with the workers in 2024 and moving forward. Crystal clear, and Sean Fain is clearly not being crystal clear with the workers. After 3 years of endless rounds of government-mandated mediation imposed on the railroaders by the Anti-Worker Railroad Law Act, and after an earlier settlement that the government and union bureaucracy sought to enforce in a vote subject to endless delays and marred by serious irregularities, workers were finally set to launch a national strike on December 8th, a day after my birthday. That would have been a great Christmas present. Birthday present. Workers face brutal employers who refuse to budge on essential and basic demands such as a paid sick leave, Workers currently have none at all, and scheduling that allows them to spend time with their families. This is the body of work that Sean Fain says speak for itself for Joe Biden. Let's go back to the video now of Sean Fain lying and confusing workers.
Donald Trump, every time he's had the opportunity, he blamed the American worker. And you look at President Biden, every time he's had the opportunity, he bet on the American worker. He stood with the American worker.
Yes.
That's our fight going forward. And we're going to do everything in our power to get this man reelected.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So this is not a thing. Sean Fain doesn't have the power to mobilize any of his UAW rank and file to vote for Joe Biden. He does not have that power. And like I said before, it's already been said, and actually it was a petition by Trump supporters who are the part of the rank and file of the UAW, a petition after he made his endorsement a couple of months ago or maybe weeks ago. There was a petition or a movement to force him to unendorse Biden because the rank and file is largely Trump supporters. But let's move on to talk about more about how and why Joe Biden will lose this election. And Stephen A. Smith, like I said, anytime somebody like an establishment shield, and believe me, this is an Uncle Tom. This is a Negro servant. That's who Stephen A. Smith is. But that doesn't mean a coon does not, or I should say a Negro servant does not have the ability to make the right analysis here. Let me see where I have my banner for him. So this is Stephen A. Smith goes after Joe Biden. Now it's in 2 clips. Let's watch the first clip.
We all know.
Hang on a second. Okay, here we go.
We all know
about racial tropes, do we not? Racist tropes. You ever heard of that? Where people sit up there and try to use things to intimate something else of a racially insensitive nature. So black folks with the president and fried chicken ain't the greatest look. That's number one. Number two, President Biden, respectfully, I got to ask you this question. What the hell are you doing eating fried chicken? You're 81. What 81 you know is munching on fried chicken?
That's a good point.
You ain't been in the greatest health in a lot of people's eyes, you know. So eating some fried chicken ain't the greatest look. Thirdly, y'all knew Fox News and other networks jumped on that, right? And they talked about how he's trying to appeal with the black vote to go get fried chicken. They made the connection, right? Y'all would have a problem with Fox News and Jesse Waters bringing something like that up. I have a problem with the president. There's black kids all over the place. There's a whole bunch of black kids in Raleigh, North Carolina. That is the kind of scene, that is the kind of imagery you and your team decided to provide? Really? Really? Sitting down eating fried chicken. Come on, man. Now, on this show, I've called out Trump and various other Republicans for some of the decisions that they made and some of the things that they've done. Do you think I'm going to let President Biden off the hook? This wasn't Kamala Harris in Raleigh. This was him. This is the same dude who was a senator in the 90s pushing the crime bill. You know that crime bill that led to mass incarceration for an inordinate amount of black folks that Bill Clinton himself and others in the Democratic Party lamented? Well, who was more of a culprit in that regard than Biden? I recognize what he's done for HBCUs. I recognize what he's done for infrastructure. I recognize what he's done for forgiveness of student loans. I recognize these things. I'm not trying to expel or expunge the good that he has done. But this imagery, I want to know who the hell came up with that idea.
So I'm going to rewind it. I'm trying to play the video through and then go back, but his critique is that why is your pitch to black people, why does it include fried chicken? Same question was asked or brought up with Hillary Clinton having hot sauce in her fucking purse. Oh, God.
We all know about racial tropes, do we not? Racist tropes. You ever heard of that? Where people sit up there and try to use things to intimate something else of a racially insensitive nature. So black folks with the president and fried chicken ain't the greatest look. That's number one. Number two, President Biden, respectfully, I got to ask you this question. What the hell are you doing eating fried chicken?
That's the part I want to stop because that's a good point. You damn near 97 years old. What the hell you doing eating fried chicken? Fried anything, sir. As you walk, look like you barely gonna fall with each step. And he's eating fried chicken. But anyway, let's get to the other clip, part of this clip, where he gets a little bit more substance, and not just on the fried chicken part. But what I do, no, it's actually no more substance. What I do like about the first clip, he mentions the crime bill too. So it's not a good look, and he's talking about racial tropes. It's not a good look to show up with fried chicken. It's just not a good look. But anyway, let's listen to the second part here. Let me see if I can get it to populate. There we go.
Do you think I'm going to let President Biden off the hook? This wasn't Kamala Harris in Raleigh. This was him. This is the same dude who was a senator in the 90s pushing the crime bill. You know that crime bill that led to...
Yeah, I thought I saved the second one here, but that says a lot of the same here. Anyway, let's play it. Whatever, let's play it.
Do you think I'm
going
to let President
Biden
off the hook?
more at the end. So he overlaps some, and then it's some that's not. Okay, now I understand.
This wasn't Kamala Harris and
Some of
Raleigh.
it is
This was
overlap.
him. This is the same dude who was a senator in the 90s pushing the crime bill. You know that crime bill that led to mass incarceration for an inordinate amount of black folks that Bill Clinton himself and others in the Democratic Party.
Now, when I said earlier in the intro, when I described this segment, I said, anytime I said why this stuck out to me, why I wanted to cover it. This guy's he's a Looney Tune. The reason I wanted to cover this is because if an establishment guy, because he's the establishment, ESPN is owned by Disney, he's establishment, and he's the highest paid person on ESPN. So this guy has a lot of pull. So if he's coming out with this sort of critique of Biden and also bringing up the crime bill, that tells me, or it's telling me, I'm suspicious that somebody is, he is in cahoots with someone or some entity to bring this critique. Because bringing up the crime bill speaks to who? Black people, but who in particular? Where the ground is very fertile for this particular demographic to leave the Democratic Party. They're leaving them at the highest rate. That's black men. So it's just a hunch. I have no evidence. I'm just saying this is very suspicious because he's getting millions regardless. Why does he need to bring up this point? He can just stay in the sports lane. Just suspicious to me. Add that on the top of the fact that he's friends with a lot of conservative people, like the Bill O'Reillys, like the Sean Hannitys. So that's suspicious to me, but we can continue what he says.
Party lamented. Well, who was more of a culprit in that regard than Biden? I recognize what he's done for HBCUs. I recognize what he's done for infrastructure. I recognize what he's done for forgiveness of student loans. I recognize these things. I'm not trying to expel or expunge the good that he has done. But this imagery, I want to know who the hell came up with that idea. Because you know Trump and the GOP are going to use that to their advantage, right?
You mean like you're doing it right here? They're going to point out how it's pandering like you're doing, point out how it's not a good look like you're doing.
And they'll be right to do so.
Like you're doing.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we're being fair, if we saw Donald Trump sitting down in a black household, eating fried chicken with a father and a son, what would we say? What would we say?
Yeah.
What would we say? You know, folks out there would be calling it racist. Well, if it's racist for him, and I'm not saying it would be, but if it's racist for him, why wouldn't it be racist for Biden?
Great point made by the Negro servant, the black bourgeoisie. And he's making a valid point that Trump supporters are probably asking. I would guarantee, and I think I saw it, Jesse Waters, of course, covered that. I guarantee that was a Jesse. I seen the video clip. I'm thinking of it, and I almost for sure that was Jesse Waters on that clip that I'm thinking about. So that's Stephen A. And then just to round this out, I did want to bring up Fred Flintstone. I just want to show this as a transition to getting to the actual thing. Where's Fred Flintstone at? Oh, here goes Fred. So yeah, I just want to quickly show this and get a little bit of reaction for this. And let's put up the right graphic. Fred Flintstone votes for Fred Flintstone. That's what we're talking about in this very short, quick, funny sketch segment. This is the tweet that I saw. And it said, Jenks said, today, the day I voted for this guy. And I was like, oh, Who did Jake vote for? Who did Fred Flintstone announce that he float for? It was it. I'm not gonna say that. Who did Fred Flintstone say? And then I scroll down more and I see the picture of the person who says, I voted for this guy. So let's can I make this picture bigger or not? Yeah, there we go. So Cenk Uygur continues to confuse and confuse the worker and grift off of the worker. This guy is not American born. He clearly knows he can't run for president. Yet he voted for himself in the primary. And TYT, of course, they have to. He's the boss, goes along with this. I remember one interview Hannah did. You can tell she was forced to do this. The clip comes on and she's like, yeah, I'm here with presidential candidate, I guess. You can clearly hear in her voice that's like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm pretending like I'm giving a real interview to Cenk Uygur, a fake candidate. It was funny though. But here's Cenk with his t-shirt. It says Cenk for America. I wonder how many of those has he sold. Cenk for America. And I thought this was funny. But let's look at some of the reaction by people. And I see Russell from Due Dissonance already. And Russell says, is that legal? Being that he can't run for office? Like, is it legal to vote for a person who's not legally able to hold the office? Maybe they can run, but they can't hold the office. So I don't know. Maybe he did. Or maybe he wrote himself in. Here is Indie Media saying, you're about the only one. Too strong. Oh, is he on here? Did they show him on here? Oh, because they're showing all the votes. Yeah, I don't see Cenk. So I don't see Cenk Uygur on there. Any other reaction? No, you didn't. Cenk Uygur is still pretending like he's running for president. He isn't even on the ballot in his home state of California, nor is he eligible as a write-in candidate. And these are the receipts. This is a link that shows the people on the ballot in California. This guy's just making shit up, basically. That's Cenk Uygur. Grifting. Now, this is what you call grifting. Is this putting on this charade of a candidacy in order to get eyes and ears to stay in tune with your channel. That is literally the definition of one of the definitions of grifting. So let's move on to the next thing, because what I want to kind of now pivot to is where is that at? I want to pivot to this. The anti-genocide protest movement. This is what I want to pivot to. And where is that? Where am I going to start with? I think I want to start with showing you what happened to AOC, so we can talk about that, because that's part of it. So let's show what happened to AOC. AOC's protest. Where is that at? Or where is that? Did I skip over it? Okay, right here. So yeah, let's start here, because this is part of the anti let's play this video. Let me pause it, actually. Pause. Because this is what happened to AOC is part of the anti-genocide movement. What happened to AOC? So we're going to play the video, and this is a doctored video, meaning they've added words and stuff. So that's why I want to play this one, just in case you can't hear it, or for those hearing impaired, you can see on the screen the wording. But I will read, I think I got 2 super chats. Yeah, I'll read the 2 super chats really quickly before I move and, dive into this next topic here. So make sure you hit that like button. Try to get us to 800 likes. Since we already have 1,000 people watching, how about 1,000 likes? If everybody hit 1,000 right now, everybody hit that like button, we can get to 1,000 likes. So hit that like button. But let me read the super chats. One is from Janice, always showing love. Don't think SCOTUS thought through their ruling. The state board of elections aren't going to be able to kick third party off now. They'll try though, and for certain, Janice, they're going to take them to court. For certain they'll find something here or there. I think the last time one of the states took the Green Party off the ballot when Howie Hawkins was running, because who was his vice president? Angela something was his vice president. She had changed. She had moved during the time. So when she applied to be on the ballot, she was living on this address. Months later, ended up having to move. So now she moved. Oh, she got the wrong address, and that's how they got her off one of the ballots. So of course they're going to try. Thank you for that super chat, Janice. This next super chat, neutralize. Remember, I was saying, what do they mean by neutralize? What is an empire? What does the U.S. empire mean? But when they say neutralize, and it says neutralize equal IRS tax audits and daily beast pieces. That's one way to neutralize somebody. That is, it's a soft neutralization, I guess you can say. But let's get back to the topics now. And again, hit that like button, get us to 800 likes. And one more shout out. Become a Patreon member. That's the best way to support us. That's the best way to support our editor, the editor that brings us a lot of great graphics like this one, graphics like this one, graphics like this one, graphics like the one you see today. So if you want to support our editor and also us, Patreon is the best way to do that. It's scrolling at the bottom. Make sure you join if you can. I think the lowest plan is $3, or the lowest contribution is $3 a month. Thank you for that. All right, so let's get to the presentation. The anti-genocide protest movement. And we're going to start with this video. Like I said, Nick covered this yesterday, so we're covering it differently. More of hers is the fallout of this. And then we're going to also cover the Adam Schiff protests and the Kirsten Gillibrand protests. So we're covering all this protests, or all of these elected people are being protested upon over Gaza, over the genocide that's happening in Gaza. So this is absolutely a growing and active anti-genocide protest movement. Let's watch this with AOC.
You refuse to call it a genocide in front of everybody.
I need you to understand that this is not okay.
It's not okay that there's a genocide happening. You're not actively against it.
You're lying.
I'm lying.
You're not.
You went on TV and avoided talking about it.
You just not act. You can't say it's a genocide or what you're deciding for political race. You can't call it a genocide. How do you say we're not lying.
We're not lying.
You've been
We're not
saying in
TV.
interviews, it's insane. You haven't been calling it a genocide.
Call it one right now.
Then just say it's a genocide. Just say it. Over 30,000 people are dead, AOC. You can't just say it for once. Just say the word. That's it. That's all we want you to say. Or you're not angry about people confronting you publicly. You can't call it genocide. Over 30,000 people have died.
Stop. Okay? Stop.
The ginger said stop.
We're not doing anything. We're just talking to an elected public official. That's all we're doing. That's it.
To cut it, and you're going to cut this, and you're going to clip this so that it's completely out of context. I already said that it was, and y'all are just going to pretend that it wasn't over and over again. It's fucked up, man. And you're not helping these people, and you're not helping them.
You refuse to.
You're not helping them.
You know who's not getting protested on? for not standing with Gaza, RBN. We call it a genocide every time we can. And I know plenty of people who call it a genocide. Why she didn't say it there? You know how you diffuse a protester who's saying you won't call something a genocide? You go, what the fuck you talking about? It is a fucking genocide. They're genociding it up over there in occupied Palestine. Then they go, oh, this now is not a viral video anymore. This is no longer a viral video. You make it viral by huffing and puffing and running away and saying you did call it a genocide without calling it a genocide real time. She says, I did call it that. I did say that. She doesn't even say the words in the video. But beautiful, and people kept their calm. I would have been yelling a whole lot more. And a whole lot more profanity being yelled to rile this person up. I'm loving seeing what's happening to her. I'm going to get to the article, but I did want to just show a couple of other things here. Oops. I don't know why this is opening so slow. Now it's finally, everything's opening. All right. So I covered the video already. This is just a wider version of it. So we can move on. Just a couple of reaction here. Every time they show their faces in public, she endorsed Genocide Joe. She made her bed. Here's another one. No politician should be able to walk around outside without being confronted like this. Here's another one. Fuck your movie night. She was at the movies, by the way, and carrying on like shit isn't totally fucked. I hate these people. Here is Jamaal Bowman playing Captain Save an AOC. So let's zoom in here, and then we'll get to Sabby's comment. But let's zoom into this comment here. So this is let me put the right thing up here. So this is Jamaal Bowman coming to the aid of fellow genocider, fellow State of Israel supporter, fellow Iron Dome supporter. He voted for in the past, and she recently said she's down for it. But that's what this is, and it's just notable to me that it's kind of a tale, because is he defending himself or is he defending AOC? You get what I'm saying? Is he just using AOC to kind of give his arguments because he's heard the same sort of critique about riding the fence with Israel and Palestine, about not being a total, not in total solidarity with Palestine? Jamaal Bowman plays Captain Save an AOC. So let me read what he says here. He says, my sister AOC was one of the first members of Congress to call for a ceasefire. She has been fighting for justice for Palestinians and human rights even before then. AOC is with us in this fight for a permanent ceasefire. So Jamaal Bowman says, hey, I can vouch for AOC. Now, he has another name other than Jamaal Bowman. The guy who stood with Joe Biden breaking a railroad strike. We forgot about that too. And then, actually, I'm not going to bring up that other one, but this is just another. I just can't think of two groups, because you're talking about workers and you're talking about Palestinians. When we're talking about economics, workers are in a dire straits. when we're talking about humanity, then we have Palestinians in dire straits. Jamaal Bowman has sold out both groups heavily. Jamaal Bowman supporting the state of Israel and Jamaal Bowman supporting breaking a strike. So if the support of Palestinians isn't enough, let this be enough. That wasn't planned. I just thought, oh yeah, he was one of the people who broke a strike. So that's just something else. But anyway, let's get back to Jamaal Bowman playing Captain Save an AOC. And like I said, I see this more of him, like you could take this out. He's saying, I was one of the first members of Congress to call for a ceasefire. This is him defending himself. I have been fighting for justice for Palestine and human rights even before then. I am with us. I am with you and in this fight for a permanent ceasefire. And we got video too. I'm going to get to that in a second of this. So that's Jamaal Bowman playing Captain Save an AOC. There. Let's get back here to the fallout. Here is RBN sister Sabrina saying, your sister has yet to call it genocide, Jamaal Bowman. And what else we got here? Just some more reaction. Congressman Bowman, AOC was the one who said protesters were not meant to be comfortable. Protests are not meant to be comfortable. Maybe you both forgot that, like how you forgot you weren't supposed to meld right in with the Dem establishment the second you got into power. Now let me play this video from Midwestern Marks. Does great viral videos on TikTok. Look what he put together on this topic.
Congresswoman AOC was recently called out by protesters for refusing to label what Israel's doing in Gaza as a genocide. Let's see how she responded.
You refuse to call it a genocide.
I need you to understand.
It's not okay that there's a genocide happening. You're not actively against it.
You're lying.
You're lying.
You're not.
You went on TV and avoided talking.
You're lying.
So there you have it. AOC tells the protester that it's not okay for him to be confronting her in public. He also criticizes AOC for not labeling what's going on as a genocide or actively fighting against it, to which she calls him a liar. So let's check the record. AOC was recently asked on Meet the Press whether or not she would label what's going on right now as a genocide.
Do you agree with that word genocide, that the president's been supporting a genocide, or does that go too far?
I think what we are seeing right now throughout the country is that young people are appalled at the violence and the indiscriminate loss of life. We are not just seeing 25,000 people that have died in Gaza. We are seeing the starvation of millions of people, the displacement of over 2 million Gazans. We have South Africa that has mounted a court in the ICJ. The ICJ ruled this week that Israel has a grave responsibility to prevent genocide.
But they're still determining whether it's a genocide. Do you think
they are still determining it?
It's still under investigation?
I believe that they're still determining it.
Well, guys, our boy the protester kind of has
That
a
sounds
point.
like she said it.
Didn't label it as a genocide. And she also called this man a liar for saying that she's not actively fighting against genocide. And you could argue that she is actively fighting against the genocide, although she's falling short of labeling it a genocide. But really, how can you fight against a genocide if you can't even admit that a genocide is a genocide? To me, this just seemed like a lot of politician weasel words from AOC. And let's not forget, AOC voted for funding Israel's Iron Dome and their military actions in the Gaza Strip. But really, she isn't doing that much to fight against the genocide. And I think it's quite disgraceful for her to label this concerned citizen as a liar, just because he's worried about the 10,000 children and 30,000 people who have been exterminated in the Gaza Strip over the past 100 or so days, which again, AOC in the past has voted in favor of funding. So from my perspective, these guys are heroes, and AOC is nothing but a letdown who makes socialists look bad. Sorry if you're an AOC fan, but that's the way I see it. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Yeah, but that's like Nick always points out, this is what she's supposed to do. Her and Bernie Sanders, really, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, they are here to dumb down to dumb down the left and to make us appear feckless, stupid, unorganized, weak. Anyway, let's move on to the next receipt here.
Congresswoman AOC was recently called out by protesters for refusing to label what Israel's doing in Gaza as
Thank you. All right, next receipt here.
genocide. Let's see how she responded.
That's Eddie from Midwestern Marks. Now let's watch this part. Now, AOC, let's listen to the AOC here. I'm not even going to preface this video. Let's listen.
A couple of years ago, there was a vote in Congress for funding for the Iron Dome, and you very publicly were torn, even emotional about your vote, which ultimately was present. You put out a statement saying that you opposed Iron Dome funding. I wonder, given everything that we've seen in this last week, the Iron Dome has essentially intercepted thousands of rockets from Hamas. Do you believe now that that funding is essential? Would you vote for it today?
And to be clear, at that time, I had voted present on the Iron Dome funding because of what we had seen previously that year in terms of Netanyahu's decisions, which also resulted in the bombing of several buildings that contain media agencies, civilian targets. However, I do think that in this present moment, when we discuss support for Israeli defense systems, that is absolutely legitimate. I think it is absolutely something that whose support we can.
So you would vote yes today if it came to the United States Congress, additional funding for the Iron Dome?
I think if it was explicitly around that, I have concerns about white phosphorus. I have concerns about the respect for about human rights and ensuring that we have humanitarian aid going through. But on the sole principle of Iron Dome and defense, I absolutely think there's an openness for sure.
I want to get you.
She gives away so many tales, the stuttering, the saying, not completing a thought, like saying something 3 words in a sentence and then moving to a different sentence, the blinking of the eyes. We're supposed to believe this person, and this was her reaction like several days right after October 7th. But this same person want us to believe in the video, she has been calling it a genocide. Gotcha. That's Max Blumenthal found that old video.
A couple of years ago, there was
put it on there. I think I had found it again, but anyway, is this more reaction? Oh, Tim Black even chimed in. Tim Black says, "Look at AOC. Listen to her. Pathetic. She's literally running from condemning a genocide. I'm embarrassed I ever supported this now full-fledged establishment receptacle. I torched relationships in a foolish attempt to support the squad. And in this, and this is where we are." So Tim Black gave up friendships over the squad and most of the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, and look at what they look like now. Here's Caitlin Johnstone chiming in saying, "Just a few years ago, half of left Twitter brought the hammer down on me for making fun of AOC's phony performance stick. Glad we all see through this worthless shit lib now. Democrats are not your friend, people." And then, of course, her crying here, and then her here. Under Trump versus under Biden. Do you like that, guys? All right, so let's listen to this other part here. Here's another flashback video that I wanted to play. Come on.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist.
Let's listen. This person called for a genocide.
Israel. Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist. I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
What did you
I
mean?
think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing.
She's not good at this. She is so not good at this. She's so not good at memorizing all of the establishment talking points. She's not good at it's a better way of saying it. She's not good at answering on the fly questions about as an establishment representative. She's not good at that. She gets thrown off and you can clearly tell. Let's listen. Oh. Uh-oh. Let's refresh it. So let's refresh and see if that works. All right. Fingers crossed.
Israel.
There we go.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist.
Israel.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist. I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think
she's realizing. Oh, I said occupation. That is not that's not an establishment approved word or concept that we can discuss. So she's like, oh, fucking bitch. What is the fucking answer to this? And it's glorious to watch it live. I'll hopefully it'll play again. If not, I'll just stop the video. Look at this brain fork.
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing
she's terrible.
difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just I am not the expert at geopolitics on this.
So she goes, this is what she does. So when she's challenged on her pseudo left position, then it's, oh, I'm not an expert. Bernie Sanders does this too. When he's asked about, I don't keep track of this kind of stuff. Because if you keep track and you are the supposed leftist you claim to be, there's a contradiction here. So I don't know that much about geopolitics. You don't, and you're a politician? Isn't that kind of your job? It is ridiculous, but we don't have to belabor the point. So what we saw happen to AOC in the protests is part of the anti-genocide protest movement. Now let's go to the next sort of illustration of that protest movement, and that is who got protested on? Was it Adam Schiff? Let me see. Yeah, I think it was Adam Schiff. Where are we? Oh, no, this is the banner. My bad. This is the banner. All right, so let's get to the Adam Schiff part of this. I was thinking it was a separate banner, but I already had it up. Now, Adam Schiff running for California state senator, And senator is the cushy job everybody in Washington wants because you have a lot of power and you only have elections every 6 years. So this is the job that everybody is sought out after. And you stay. When you get that senator job, you keep that senator job. Adam Schiff, along with, I think, Katie Porter, along with the guy that used to play with the Dodgers, I forget his name. He was a Republican, along with, what's the black lady name? I forget her name. She's a supposed progressive, but she's also running. She's in the Black Progressive Caucus. I forget her name. But anyway, she's also running. Adam Schiff won that election, or was one of the top winners of the election, the primary, last night. Adam Schiff. And of course, he comes to stage to give a victory speech. But that victory speech is interrupted by the anti-genocide protest movement. Let me read the caption. This is Due Dissident saying, Adam Schiff's victory speech cut short by ceasefire protesters. Good for them. And once again, shame on the pathetically stupid and utterly worthless Democratic primary voters of California. This says chants for ceasefire shut down Adam Schiff Super Tuesday speech. It's not a long video. It's about a minute and a half. Let's play it in its entirety before I say anything. Let's watch.
I want to thank you all.
He gives up.
Someone came up and said to Adam Schiff, who was reading off a prompter, who was trying to stick to the prompter to wrap it up. He went and finished it up. These were people who came in, about 5 or 6 to start with, and said, ceasefire now, ceasefire now. Security ushered them out. And then another couple popped up, let Gaza live, let Gaza live. And then some more came in the middle. Security could not get them out, that they were scattered through the room here at the Avalon Theater and the nightclub. Go down there and pull down in the crowd for me, please. And you see that, there's just a lot of arguing, a lot of disagreement. Again, they were chanting, free Gaza now, let Gaza live, ceasefire now, let Gaza live. And the protesters remain here in the center of this floor. So what was supposed to be a victory celebration and a scripted speech that Adam Schiff was reading off prompter, one no doubt he had carefully crafted a long time ago, was cut dramatically short, and he was now taken off the stage.
Wow. Now this is embarrassment for them because they're about pomp and circumstance. They're about tradition, decorum, and all of that. So he probably went to the back and was steaming. Adam Schiff's victory speech, pro-Palestinian protest. Now I'm going to replay it and kind of give commentary. I want to try to do that more often. Just play the video outright and then replay with my commentary. Now let's go back through.
I want to thank you all.
That is so embarrassing for them. That is so embarrassing. If I was an establishment person, I would be so embarrassed because this is going to go viral.
Someone came up and said to Adam Schiff, who was reading off a prompter, who was trying to stick to the prompter to wrap it up. He went and finished it up. These were people who came in, about 5 or 6 to start.
I want that footage. Do you see how they clip this news? It's that section showing somebody coming up and say, hey, man, nobody's listening. So it sounds like he tried to continue on with his speech through the protests, and it wasn't sounding good. And somebody you can wrap this shit up. This is not working well. Let's continue.
Start with it said ceasefire now, ceasefire now. Security ushered them out, and then another couple popped up, let Gaza live, let Gaza live, and then some more came in the middle. Security could not get them out, that they were scattered through the room here at the Avalon Theater and the nightclub. Go down there and pull down to the crowd for me, please. And you see that, there's just a lot of arguing, a lot of disagreement. Again, they were...
Man, you see this old guy yelling at these people. He's pissed. This old guy who don't give a fuck about the genocide yelling at these protesters.
They were
in their face
chanting,
right here with the glasses.
Free Gaza now.
He's mad as
Let
fuck.
Gaza live. Ceasefire now. Let Gaza live. And the protesters remain here in the center of this floor. So what was supposed to be a victory celebration and a scripted speech that Adam Schiff was reading off prompter, one no doubt he had carefully crafted a long time ago, was cut dramatically short, and he was now taken off the stage.
Absolutely embarrassing, but there's this anti-genocide protest. It's just every day there's some sort of disruption, and I mean, you hate the situation of a genocide happening, but you love that people are reacting the way they should when a genocide is happening. You love that it's a lot of protests happening. You love that it's a lot of disruptions and direct action happening. All of these things are a good sign for humanity. What would be terrible if all of this stuff was going on and nobody had a reaction? That is what would be awful. But anyway, let's show. Let's go to Kirsten Gillibrand. Where's that at? Right here. So she had a town hall. Read this. Pro-Palestinian activist disrupted U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand at a town hall meeting in New York City. Let's listen. They're not going to be able to do anything. Like Nick said in the tweet that went viral yesterday, this is going to be a long election season for Democrats because of their position.
Gillibrand, how can you say that you represent New Yorkers when 70% of this country demands a ceasefire in Gaza, when 45% of New Yorkers demand a ceasefire, when 53% of New Yorkers do not want to send Israeli funding or military aid anymore?
Senator Gillibrand, you received $366,000 from pro-Israel lobbies in this past election cycle. Why are you allowing your interests to be bought by foreign governments?
Yeah, we're sending billions of our taxpayer dollars to kill children and women.
Oh, God. You hear this guy? You know how deranged, you know how soaked your brain has to be with propaganda for you to be upset enough to yell at a protester who doesn't want you to support a genocide. Only a boomer. Only a boomer. I gotta rewind this and listen to this again.
Yeah, we're sending billions of our taxpayer dollars to kill children and women. 30,000 people have been murdered.
Have the money to correct these historic wrongs. If you took the money that you had,
look at that old guy. The old guy who could barely move and has a cane is telling somebody to shut up. When all you gotta do is tip that guy who will fall right over. Oh, this is beautiful to see. The generational divide, the young people, and I'm saying young, it's really under 40. Because it's 39 and under is the polling, who are saying fuck this shit, and the old people who are down for the establishment talking points and just put their head in the sand about what's going on.
$1 billion you gave to Israel of our taxpayer money.
You are lying to the people, saying there is a peace process when Israel is the one that has been consistently declining a ceasefire. 25-year-old Aaron Bushell gave up his life and immolated. His last words were free Palestine. And this is what you do to political opponents. My family members are being murdered.
Let us see.
Last week, 3 more of my family members have been murdered in Gaza. She's not answering though. She's not answering.
Every single morning I wake up and I see Palestinians dying day after day after day after day, body after body after body, with our taxpayer dollars funding it.
How many Palestinian children need to be killed before you call for a ceasefire? You have blood on your hands. My people deserve to live. My people deserve to live. You have blood on your hands.
I haven't seen anything like this since Vietnam. Like, this shit is nonstop. This shit is not dying down. It's not, protest is dying. No, it's not. And it is like I said, the circumstance you would rather not be in, but if you have to be in the circumstance, I'm loving this is the response, because this is the response we should be having when it comes to these types of things. Next thing is Jamaal. I thought I brought up Jamaal Bowman. Did I not? Oh, I didn't play his video. I brought up Jamaal Bowman, but I didn't play his video. So where is he? Jamaal Bowman the snake. Did I? Maybe I did. Oh no, I didn't cover. Did I not cover Jamaal? Maybe I talked about it, but I don't feel like I haven't played the video. So let's do this Jamaal Bowman part now. I completely, for whatever reason, thought I covered it, but I did not. Now, yeah. So let's cover it. For some reason, I thought. So the reason. And here's the headline. I'm sorry. Here's the segment title. Jamaal Bowman pretends he hasn't been a staunch supporter of Israel. I remember I brought up his stuff in another topics, but I didn't cover it. So this is me covering it now. So this is Jamaal Bowman. Jamaal Bowman put out this video trying to prove he is in solidarity with the Palestinian cause and what's happening to Palestine. And he's been doing this sort of pivot or this sort of bit for the last, I would say, 2 months. The first several months, he was still on the pro-Israel thing. But the last several months, he's made a pivot. In particular, once he found out that AIPAC was spending $100 million to unseat him, and he's one of the targets. They already got a candidate. That candidate's doing well in the polls. So he's making a hard pivot, as if we all don't recall you being a staunch supporter of the state of Israel. But let's start with the video he has, and then we got a couple of other receipts.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank VP Kamala Harris for calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. We have thousands of children starving. The bombing is continuing. We have a humanitarian crisis of 2 million people. Enough is enough. We need a permanent, immediate ceasefire right now. We need to bring in all of the humanitarian aid. We need to free the hostages both in Gaza and in the West Bank. And we need to continue to push for peace in the region. Over 100 members of Congress have now called for a ceasefire, including New Yorkers AOC, Nydia Velasquez, Dan Goldman, and Jerry Nadler. But my opponent continues to say nothing about the death that is happening in Gaza and say nothing about the starvation of children in Gaza. That is not leadership. That is not empathy. That is not compassion. And that does not get us to peace. You can join us and call for a ceasefire now to make sure we save as many lives as possible. Enough is enough.
And his
Good morning,
opponent,
everyone. I
after
want to
I
thank
guess
VP
after
Kamala
a little bit of
Harris for calling
pressure,
for a ceasefire.
he now has called for a ceasefire. Yep. So he put this video out 2 days ago, and I saw the headline. I'm not going to bring it up because the story is insignificant. The opponent is insignificant, but he's now calling for a ceasefire. So this point that he makes is now moot. But let's read a couple of reactions. Jamaal, are you unendorsing Genocide Joe? He's the one starving and killing kids. How's that long game working for you or them? This one, fuck you, phony. You finally got the okay from the high, from on high to say ceasefire, huh, coward? You're 35,000 dead Palestinians late, scumbag. You and the Democrats are the party of the genocide and children murder, and we'll never forget it. Like I said, that's what he thinks. Like we forgot. So let's jog his memory with this headline. Democratic Socialists of America Congressman Jamaal Bowman votes for Israel's Iron Dome, visits with right-wing Prime Minister Bennett. This is the Prime Minister that just had before Benjamin Netanyahu came back. I'll read a snippet from this article. The Democratic Socialists of America's congressional support for Israel's Iron Dome program is further confirmation that the organization is a faction of the Democratic Party, a supporter of imperialism, and a facilitator of war crimes against the population of Gaza. And we can add genocide enabler to that list. On September 24th, New York Democratic Congressman and DSA member Jamaal Bowman voted to provide the Israeli military with a $1.1 billion for its Iron Dome armament program, in addition to the $3.3 billion in Israeli military funding that Bowman previously voted for in July. So the Iron Dome money and the $3.3 billion. The guy who is now saying ceasefire, he's the one who supplied the money and the weapons. Him. Hardly 6 months have passed since Israel launched a bombing campaign against the West Bank and Gaza. And then, if I didn't tip you off, this is an article from a while back. They're talking about another assault in Gaza. This is not the current one. Hardly 6 months have passed since Israel launched a bombing campaign against the West Bank and Gaza, killing hundreds, injuring over 1,000 protesters, and displacing 70,000 people. During the 2-week bombardment, Israel bombed 19 hospitals, dozens of schools, and a refugee camp, and the building housing the Office of Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other news agencies. But by funding the Iron Dome, Bowman and the DSA are freeing up billions that the Israeli military will use to purchase the bombs, missiles, and bullets it will use that is committing the genocide today. I added that last part. Less than 2 weeks after his second Iron Dome vote, Bowman traveled to Israel as part of a Democratic Party delegation. 2 years ago, Israel refused entry to 2 of Bowman's fellow DSA members, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, denying them the chance to visit Tlaib's grandma. That guy. On this trip, Bowman visited with Israeli Prime Minister, former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and presented leaders of the far-right Yemeni Party. Bennett is a supporter of the right-wing settlement in Palestine and has called for the annexation of sections of the West Bank. Earlier this year, Bennett, the prime minister at the time, pushed for the passing of apartheid laws stripping residency or citizenship rights for Palestinian spouses of Israeli citizens. In 2013, Bennett declared, quote, "I already killed lots of Arabs in my life, and I have absolutely no problem with that." And there is absolutely no problem with that. That's Jamaal Bowman, the guy who now is leaning heavily into, I'm a pro-Palestinian guy. And just to put a cherry on the top, let's listen to this short snippet of him, because there was backlash when he voted for the Iron Dome. They were talking about expelling him from the DSA, but of course the DSA didn't do that. Of course not. Let's listen to this short snippet here.
I wanted to ask you about your vote in September to approve the additional $1 billion in Iron Dome funding for the Israeli military. This created a controversy within the Democratic Socialists of America, which endorsed you last year. A number of DSA chapters called for you to be expelled from the national organization. Your response?
Well, I've been working with DSA since then to build a better working relationship and get a better understanding how we can work together to move our progressive agenda forward. I've been working with local and national DSA to make that happen. I'm thankful that local and national DSA has been supportive. To the other segments of DSA, before commenting publicly on social media, reach out to our office, let's have a conversation, and let's figure out how to work together as opposed to just making comments on social media. That doesn't get the movement going in the direction that we want it to go. We have to build a strong coalition on the left, strong coalition of progressives working towards common goals with a strategic plan. That's what I'm open to doing, and hopefully those other segments of DSA are open to doing the same thing as well.
Democratic Congressmember Jamaal Bowman represents.
So he's saying, instead of calling me out, similar to what AOC is saying to those people who protested, instead of calling me out, hit me up, bro, and we'll talk about it. Talk about what? You funding a genocide? What is the conversation going to be? He said the same thing to the protesters. Let's talk afterwards. Remember Jose Vega? They talked afterwards, and he said, yeah, we're going to keep funding them. Get the fuck out of here. These people deserve all of your disrespect. They deserve all of your vitriol. Every single one of them. Let me see. I cover Jamaal. I cover Super Tuesday. I cover Kirsten or Gillibrand. I cover AOC. I cover Adam. I haven't covered cognitive decline. Got to see this video. So I guess this can go under. So I don't have a banner, but let's play this video of. This is bad of Joe Biden right here. Like, you talking about cognitive decline. When people are talking about age, this video illustrates what they're actually talking about. What corporate media likes to pretend is that when they're talking about age, they're talking about the sheer number. And what I always say, you guys are using the term age to describe what this video is showing. People have eyes. So this is the reason why it's so lopsided in the polling about the age thing. People have eyes. It's not just the number. Let's watch this elder abuse being put upon Joe Biden here.
I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters? Everyone, please move this way. Super Tuesday, sir. Do you have a message for voters? Thanks. Come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Yeah, that looks like a guy who's all there. The establishment doesn't want you to believe your lying eyes, your human experience, to know when a person, another human, is cognitively different or have cognitively changed. The vacant look on this guy's face, this is one of the better close-ups to really see how vacant this guy is. And the question we would ask, why would a president, who is the president in fear of getting in trouble with if he answers questions about his policy? Why would a president get in trouble unless the president is saying crazy shit that he's not supposed to say, or the president is cognitively declining and will forget a bunch of shit and say a bunch of shit that is not part of the conversation or answer? This is sad.
I have a lot of questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
I better not start questions. I'll get in trouble. Who are you getting in trouble with? Joe Biden, president? Most powerful person on the planet? Who's getting you in trouble, sir? Then watch the vacant look.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters?
Look at this here. He almost seems afraid. Look at this.
Everyone, please move this way. Super Tuesday said, do you have a message for voters? Thanks, come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Out of here. Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, he looks okay. Is this clown shit? What kind of shit? He looks okay. Yeah, that guy looks okay. This is elder abuse. This is nothing but elder abuse. Just let me read a couple of reactions. Kind of makes you question who's running the country. He's the worst president because he exposes that presidents don't run shit. They're the theater. They make tweaks here and there, but they have a boss, and it has nothing to do with us. Are you talking about the deep state? This is what people talk about, the deep state. Who are you getting in trouble with? Most powerful person on the planet, supposedly. Bad. Anyway, let's see here. Oh, yeah, there's a sellout DSA. Do I want to read this here? Yeah, this is a longer segment. I can't squeeze this one in. I'm trying to see if I can squeeze a segment in. I can squeeze this video in right here. So let's go over this video. This is Al Sharpton talking about the left and how the left, the American left, has some anti-Semitism problem. So this is Al Sharpton on the left's anti. Now, who here on the left knew we had an anti-Semitism problem? Any raise your hand. This is something I didn't know. But Al Sharpton apparently does. Let's listen to this video. This is Case Study QB. This guy, his name is Franklin Foer. I think that's how you say it. He wrote a book called The Golden Age of American Jews is Ending. I think that's the name of the book. But I'm sorry, this is an article from The Atlantic. Let's listen to what he's talking about, anti-Semitism.
Frank, one of the things that really caught my eye in your piece was you talked about how many of us that call ourselves progressive have been swept into this, or at least give some kind of oxygen to what inadvertently is anti-Semitic. I am opposed to Netanyahu and still embrace the fact that you're not going to be for people in Israel that are civilians and children being subjected to terrorism, and still denounce what is going on in Gaza. Talk about how we could inadvertently go too far, because I've had to in my life deal with, well, wait a minute, I shouldn't have said that because that's not what I meant, and how the left cannot give oxygen to people that are anti-Semitic, racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, all of that. And I think your piece really drives that nail through the wood.
Thank you for making that distinction, Reverend Al, because if you actually polled most American Jews, they would have pretty sharp criticisms of Netanyahu. Netanyahu's approval rating among American Jews is not high. And I personally have many criticisms of the occupation, of the campaign that's being conducted in Gaza. But this is a separate question. So what I think the way in which things get taken too far is that Jews end up getting pushed out of progressive coalitions because there's a litmus test that's imposed on them, which is that you have to be anti-Zionist. So even if Jews, American Jews, have criticisms of Israel, those criticisms come ultimately of a place of love for a country and a place. And they're being told, well, if you have that love, which is so deeply embedded in your culture, in your religion, then you can't join our groups. And so you see this happening on college campuses where Hillel, which is the source of the center of Jewish life on campus, gets excluded from coalitions, even though its rabbis and the people who attend its services are very progressive. You have sexual assault survivor groups at university campuses which say, if you are a Zionist, you're not welcome here. And it's that term Zionist, which is become this synonym almost for Jews. And it's where things start to go, I think, in my mind.
No, you're trying to make it a synonym for Jews. This is what Zionists try to do. They're trying to make the term Zionist synonyms for Jews, because then they can use all of these things they're already using, anti-Semitism and all this stuff. And that's what he's trying to do in this attempt, because several times in this, what he says here in this last part where he's talking, he's interchanging, he's saying Jews, but he means Zionists. So him himself is interchanging Jews and Zionists himself. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me let it play again.
Pretty sharp criticisms of Netanyahu. Netanyahu's approval rating among American Jews is not high. And I personally have many criticisms of the occupation, of the campaign that's being conducted in Gaza. But this is a separate question. So what I think the way in which things get taken too far is that Jews end up getting pushed out of progressive coalitions.
This is where he's saying Jews when he really means Zionists, because Jews aren't pushed out progressive coalitions. If you go to a progressive coalition and say, I'm a Jew, you aren't pushed out. If you go to a progressive coalition, you say, I'm a Zionist, you are pushed out. So this is where I'm saying he is conflating the two, pretending like he's making a distinction in what he's even talking about. But even in what he's saying, he is interchanging the two. This word he should be using here is Zionist, not Jew, is being kicked out of or not let into progressive organizations. Because if they're not saying you can't join an organization because you're Jew, you can't join an organization because you're a Zionist. Not the same thing.
Out of progressive coalitions because there's a litmus test that's imposed on them, which is that you have to be anti-Zionist. So even if Jews, American Jews, have criticisms of Israel, those criticisms come ultimately of a place of love for a country and a place. And they're being told, well, if you have that love, which is so deeply embedded in your...
No, we're not being told if you have any love for the people. Nobody has the love for the country. You're telling me American Jews, some of which who have never even been to Israel, some of which who've left Israel and would rather stay here, they have all of this love and affinity? And no one's saying your love and affinity for people is the problem, but your love and affinity for occupation, apartheid, and genocide is a problem.
culture, in your religion, then you can't join our groups. And so you see this happening on college campuses where Hillel, which is the source of the center of Jewish life on campus, gets excluded from coalitions, even though its rabbis and the people who attend its services are very progressive. You have sexual assault survivor groups at university campuses which say, if you are a Zionist, you're not welcome here. And
sexual assault, yes. If you're a Zionist, not Jewish, Zionist.
It's that term Zionist, which is become this synonym almost for Jew.
No, it has not become a synonym. This is what Zionists are trying to make it a synonym, like you're doing here. You're pretending it is becoming a synonym when you want to make it a synonym.
Jews, and it's where things start to go, I think, in my mind, too far. That
in your mind,
anti-Zionism, the use of this term Zionism, which describes Jews as being conniving or controlling, exhibiting bloodlust, it really carries all of these ancient tropes with it. And
this is where Zionism and Zionists, this is how you know this guy's a Zionist. This is because Zionism and Zionists are the only ones who tried to make this connection. The criticism of your Zionist genocidal campaign is not the same thing that would happen to Jews historically, but Zionists try to make that connection. Orthodox Jews do not. Let's continue.
And it seems to me as if it's a way of injecting thoughts and ideas that are otherwise verboten or beyond the pale into legitimate discourse.
Staff writer at the Atlantic.
I'm sorry, sir. Young people, people in college, it's not going to go backwards. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like the people who are anti-Zionists are going to become pro-Zionists. That's not going to happen. And I'm not sure what these Zionists are going to do. Like, public sentiment is different now. And it's not going to be going back to anywhere. It is here where it's at and to stay. And the only way it's going to go further in the way of in the direction of Palestinians. NATO is a terrorist organization. This is one of the hoodies you can get on RBN merch shop. You can get it in yellow. You can get it in blue, like a powder blue. You can get it in white. I like the white because you can see the lettering stands out. NATO in these light colors. This one too. The NATO is a terrorist organization stands out. You can also get this in a mug. You can get it in a tank top. This is what it looked like in tank. Now, all the colors are different. There's only three color options in this tank, for example. Black. That's like a gray. And then what is this called? A crew neck sweatshirt. So this doesn't have buttons. So just an example of what you can get at our merch store. We try to put unusual things on our merch store. We're going to be adding some more unusual sort of words and phrases, not just the standard, RBN. No, we want like different. I'm not going to say that. But yeah, so just if you want to check this out, there's their website, revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. Make sure you get us to 1,000 likes. We got 1,200 people watching us through most of the show today. I got one more thing to cover. I'm just doing a short intermission. Let me read a couple of super chats and then I'll get to that. Here's one super chat here. And I think Nick is covering this tomorrow about Victoria Nuland retiring. Victoria Nuland is retiring. Her replacement is the demon from The Exorcist. Yeah, he's worse. I didn't finish the article. I was reading about that. And then we got this one here. Excellent segment on the protesters, the anti-genocide protesters is what I call them. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry, first super chat came from Hobbs 45. I didn't shout out your name. And the second one I read came from Anthony Leventon. And then this third super chat I'm reading. Thank you, Sam. Important to note, aside from supporting every war, Schiff was a huge pro-incarceration guy, loves cops and locking up Black people. Yeah, he's a prosecutor. And he pushed Russiagate. So Adam Schiff has a lot of explaining to do, as Ricky Ricardo would say. Bing bong, UPS agreement with narcissist Sean Fain was future faking. They already fired 12,000 workers. The rest won't see a dime. They went to work on an empty promise. That's so true, because I think Stellantis, or one of them, part of the big three, this is not what you're saying, but one of the big three is laying off people. That was part of the negotiations for this new contract. How is that happening? And then this is one I read earlier, neutralize equals IRS tax audits and daily pieces. So that was from earlier. Let's now pivot back to Twitter. Make sure you check this out. Oh, the other thing I wanted to shout out while I have this here is that, where is it at? Our Substack. If you want to know when we go live, join our Substack scrolling at the bottom here. And then last but not least of the announcements, this part, best way to support us is through Patreon. We have plans as low as $3 a month. So if you can afford $36 a year, become a Patreon. Greatly help. We pay our editor equal amount out of our Patreon for all the great work she does, like these graphics here, like that one you see. She did this one too. She did this one too. This is one you don't see. This is a rare one you don't see often. This one too of Nick and CJ. You don't see often. So she does great work. So if you're able to support her, if you want to support her and support RBN, make sure you do that. Here's our email if you need to contact us. Now, let's get back to Twitter here. Get us to 1,000 likes. Last time I checked, we were only at 350. So we're far, oops, I didn't type it in right. We're far behind. Hit that like button. Get us to 1,000 likes. Hit that like button. 1,000 likes. We're back on Twitter now. I like saying Twitter that way. Somebody asked me why I do that, but I like saying Twitter that way. All right, so let's go for. Oh, Nick posted. Remember, I showed you the video of the guy yelling. It's so funny, but let's play that again. Remember this guy yelling? Nick clipped it and tweeted about it.
We're sending billions of our taxpayers dollars to kill children and women. 30,000 people have been murdered. And we're sending billions of our taxpayers
Look at the light.
to kill children and women. 30,000 people.
You know how much years of propaganda you have to have endured in order to do that at a protester, at anti-genocide protester. Oh, that shit was funny as fuck. Funny as fuck. All right. I think that's going to be all the video clips. Who is this? Oh, wow. This person is upset about the Palestinians. Let's play this. This is from BJG, Brianna Joy Gray.
You can tell the Palestinians, I will never support them.
What's wrong with
Why do
them?
you support the genocide and all of the war crimes and collective punishment? Are you concerned about all the children?
Let me make
died
it
in
clear.
Gaza?
Let me make it clear. Israel is our ally, will always be our ally.
Even if they commit war
And they are
crimes,
not
even
guilty
with-
of genocide,
Why?
and I will support Israel forever.
You will
Israel will stay your ally, even though they commit Israel genocide. Even though that's your term. Even
Can
when
you
they
explain-
kill,
What is
this? When they kill 30,000 kids, that is a statistic. Israeli people on October.
This is clown shit.
Yeah, Israel
will exist. The Jewish state will exist.
That's not a
It will always
statistic.
exist,
That's not what we're.
and that is for
That
God
has
to
absolutely
do
nothing
and
to do with what
decide.
we're saying.
And I will
You already
always support
support
Israel.
genocide, sir. You're
I will
supporting
always
the
support
murder of
Israel,
little children.
and you can
kind
tell
of
the
shit is
Palestinians,
this?
I will
I
never
am a
support them.
Palestinian myself.
Then I will tell you, I will never support you. I will tell you to your
And
face.
you want my
What?
You want
He
my
said I
Goodbye
will
to
tell you
Palestine.
to your
Goodbye to
face.
support
Goodbye to
Israel.
Palestine.
Goodbye
You
to
want to watch
Palestine.
Palestine?
We will support Israel forever.
So
No.
you are
I
comfortable.
will always
So,
support
that's
Israel.
Clown shit right here.
Goodbye to
Always support
Palestine.
Yes.
Israel.
So you just said goodbye to Palestine. So you are
Goodbye.
saying you are comfortable with the murder of thousands of children.
The Jewish people will never
You are
suffer
not
again
answering the
under
question.
Palestinian terrorism, under Hamas, under
35,000
Hezbollah.
What
people are
about
dead.
Israel
This
will
is
be
the reaction.
secure
30,000
forever.
innocent
And
civilians?
God bless Israel forever.
Thank
You
you for
want to wipe Palestine off the earth? Yeah.
God bless Israel forever.
These are people that are running our country.
You can tell the Palestinians.
That's
I will never
some literal clown shit that Brianna brought to us. That's literal clown shit that she got right there. Any other breaking stories? Oh, let's go to Nina Turner. Let's see if she has any updates on the uncommitted numbers. Oh. Wow. So that video of the Republican guy is kind of going viral. Nina also posted it. All right, here's a video on what's happening or what's going on in the Sudan. So let's watch this one. People fleeing the war, the war in the Sudan needs support. So they're just saying to support people in Sudan.
يلا أنا في السودان كنت أستاذة، كنت بدرس تعليم الخاص وكنت شغالة مدة سنتين، لكن لما جيت هنا يعني الوضع ما يهو، حتى إنه مشيت أنا قدمت في المدرسة هنا وشنو، لكن ما ادوني فرصة. بعد ذاك يهو عملنا شغلنا الخاص زي ما أنت شايف، زي ما قال جالستنا كده عملنا شغل خاص يهو بنتصرف منه وناكل ونشرب منه ونعلم منه.
It's another language,
توفر لي
and eyesight's not doing good enough to read that, so I'm gonna skip that one. It is in another language. I think this is going to do it for us before Sistophonic. Okay, so this is Nina Turner. I was like, wait, man, that's some unhinged shit right there, though. That is some unhinged shit. What is this one? This is breaking Donald Trump fully supports. So if anybody thought Donald Trump was going to be better on Israel, let's listen.
About your policies for a second. As you know, this president of the United States, when it comes to Israel, is getting protested. Now he seems to be turning on Israel. But the non-committed vote that Biden's getting, they're not going to like you either because you are firmly in Israel's camp, correct? Are you on board with the way the IDF is taking the fight in Gaza?
You've got to finish the problem. You had a horrible invasion. It took place. It would have never happened if I was president, by the way. As you know, Iran was broke, Brian. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas, for Hezbollah. They were broke. This would have never happened. And for another reason, they wouldn't have done it to me. I guarantee you that. They did this because they have no respect for Biden. And frankly, they got soft. And what happened here is incredible. That should never have happened. Likewise.
About your policies for a second. As you know, this
All right,
president
let
of
me
the United
pause
States,
this here.
when it comes to
So you heard President Trump say, no, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kill those damn Gazans. Just terrible. This is our government, though. I don't want to show any gore, so I won't show that one. I won't show any gore right now. That's a lot going on. That's COVID stuff. So, I'm staying away the COVID stuff. I'm not going to be touching the COVID stuff. So this is in 2023, the United States poured $200 million in security and assistance to Costa Rica, including a base which will be used by foreign militaries. Oh, is this like a viral video?
What are y'all ban? Who's fuss about banning?
Oh, I've seen that streamer before. I'm gonna skip that. Let's play this. Let's let this be the last video. Brianna Joy Gray interview Kucinich. So we're gonna play this video with commentary, and then we're gonna go ahead and get up out of here, people. Don't forget to become a Patreon member. Don't forget to hit that like button. Get us to 1,000 likes. 1,000 likes should be easy. We got 1,200 people watching right now. Excuse me. Oh, I see why it's 1,200. Wow, we have a ton of people watching on Twitter. What the? Yeah, we have. Wow, I've never seen that many people watching on Twitter. That is insane. So what's up, Twitter? Welcome aboard. All right, so let's play this. Hit that like button. Get us to 1,000 likes. All right, let's listen to this snippet that Bree cut from the interview with Dennis Kucinich.
I came to a decision to run as an independent for a number of reasons. First of all, I've never been into groupthink. I mean, even within a party, I was an outlier in terms of on these major issues of war and peace. I was always willing to challenge the leadership of the party wherever necessary, and I did so. And I did so without venom, but very directly. In addition to that, I mean, my spirit is independent. This whole categorization that partisan affiliation brings is, for me, a straitjacket. It's an ideological, a spiritual straitjacket. I think that we're in an era where the political parties, because they haven't really, it's not a dialogue anymore, it's more of a uniparty, that they're failing to address the practical aspirations of the people anymore. It's all inside baseball. So I've looked at the Democratic Party, and I've been very concerned about the fact that they have not been speaking out against these wars, have funded them in various ways. I'm concerned about the alignment that the party struck years ago with Wall Street that resulted in the Democratic Party relying on some of the titans of Wall Street to fund their congressional campaigns. But beyond that, to talk about me personally, the 7th Congressional District, 47% of the voters are non-affiliated. I have always had the ability to reach across the aisle. So my support comes from Republicans, Democrats, Independents. And because of that, I might be in a rather unique position. Again, because I don't polarize, I reach out, I try to build bridges in all directions. And as a result, I'm in a position, I think, to return to Congress truly independent, but able to work with people on both sides of the aisle, which I've done in the past. So, for me, it's a practical thing, but it's also meeting the moment where people are looking for individuals who think outside the box, who aren't constrained by the woof and warp of party thinking. And again, groupthink leads us into war. Groupthink produces genocide. Groupthink can put us on a threshold of a nuclear war. Groupthink's a dangerous thing. And our freedom as Americans depends on our ability to think freely and articulate our ideas in a way that may and should challenge the status quo. That's what I know how to do.
It's so clear. It's so clear why Dennis Kucinich resigned from being the campaign manager for the RFK campaign. RFK, I mean, and when he left, to me, that just proves that RFK is establishment. It proves that to me that that's what RFK is. If Dennis Kucinich is leaving, in particular, actually, yeah, if he's leaving, brand new member is that Morley, not Marley, but Morley, brand new member Morley. Welcome aboard. Welcome to being a brand new member. And I wonder if the thing with Israel never happened, if this October 7th never happened, would Dennis Kucinich still be the campaign manager? Because that event really put a magnifying glass on the differences between the two. I'm sure they knew he was pro-Israel before, but having the genocide actually happen and having him kowtow to the Israeli lobby and hold hands with people like Rabbi Smully, Dennis was, this is a fucking bridge too far, sir. Can't do this. Can't do this. I'm trying to be a team player, but this is too much. All right, I think that's a good way to end today. Hang on a second. There's one more thing I want to check here. Okay, so I was, before I said it, I wanted to make sure it was working, and it is working. So I think I want to play, I want to play one of Caitlin Johnstone's articles, audio articles. And if you don't know Caitlin Johnstone, play a lot of her content because, let's go back one. Play a lot of her content because she throws a lot of humor and she's very spot on with a lot of her critiques. So I like to play some of her content. And I do want to do that now. Okay, so here goes. This is the one I want to play. This is a good one. This says, nobody with real power cares if you refuse to vote for Joe Biden. Nobody with real power cares about that. So let's bring this video down and let's put this other one up here. This is Caitlin Johnstone. This is very short. It's only a 4-minute clip, but it talks about nobody cares. No one with real power cares if you refuse to vote for Joe Biden. Let's listen. This is Caitlin Johnstone. Thank you for watching. I'm going to end the stream right after this. If you want to shout out your city or if you want to comment on the video or anything else, you must include what city you're in, and I'll put it up on the screen. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for the new members. Thank you to all the super chats. And here we go.
Nobody with real power cares if you refuse to vote for Biden. There's been a lot of talk in pro-Palestine circles about withholding votes for Biden in protest of his genocide in Gaza, which is of course fine. But the discourse around doing so often misses an important point. A lot of U.S. voters erroneously think they'd be punishing the Democrats for Gaza by costing them the election, mistakenly assuming Democrats care about winning. They don't. Losing an election costs Democratic Party leaders nothing. All the career politicians and political operatives at the top keep their careers either way. From their point of view, this is just a cushy job with sweet benefits, and they keep those win or lose. And obviously Biden himself doesn't care. He'll have a comfortable retirement regardless of the outcome in November. And on some level, he's surely aware that it's nuts for a dementia patient to be in the White House anyway. The unelected empire managers who actually run the U.S. power structure also don't care who wins the election. They know they'll still get their murder and militarism and capitalism and imperialism no matter who gets sworn in next year, whether it's Biden or Trump or Harris or someone else. Nobody with any real power cares about your vote. And that's the real issue. That's the real point that keeps getting missed here. The problem is not that the wrong people keep getting elected. It's that the elections don't matter and voters don't have a say. It's that humanity is dominated by a murderous, globe-spanning power structure loosely centralized around Washington, whose actual movements and behavior have effectively zero responsiveness to the will of the electorate. You're never going to be able to vote your way out of this mess. And you're never going to be able to not vote your way out of this mess, because the power of your vote has been undermined to a value of 0. That doesn't mean there's no way out of this mess. It just means there's no way to get out of this mess using the fake plastic diversion toy they handed you to shut you up and trick you into thinking you have a say. There are still plenty of other tools in the toolbox for forcing an evil power structure to stop doing evil things, but they require a lot of hands to bring about, and right now we don't have them. Too many people have been successfully propagandized into believing the status quo works and their government is basically good, or successfully manipulated into giving up on politics altogether and throwing their attention into other things. Before the people can begin using the power of their numbers to force real change, they're going to have to be awakened to the reality that everything they've been told about their government, their society, and their world is a lie. They've got to come to the understanding that the mainstream news media are nothing but propaganda, and they live under the most murderous and tyrannical regime on this planet. They've got to realize that this power structure does not ultimately serve their interests, or the interests of their fellow human beings around the world. Only when enough eyes open to this reality can revolutionary change via direct action become possible. The good news is it's entirely possible to help get those eyes open. Everything you do to help share the truth with your fellow citizens and spread awareness of what's really going on pushes this possibility toward reality. The more people open their eyes, the more people there are to help open others. So this could snowball from impossible to probable to inevitable quite quickly. An entire globe-spanning empire rests on a closed pair of eyelids. Once they snap open, the whole thing will crumble. And from there, we can begin building a healthy world together.